university or the majors they want. So that's my kind of a main role. I'm also the operator of a digital academy, digital media academy, which is kind of a well, originally it's a summer camp program, originated in Stanford University. So I'm the official operator in Vancouver. So next year next summer will be my first kind of take over to have this summer camp program. So it'll be launching soon. So it's quite a popular summer camp and tech camp and digital media. They also have a lot of online courses right now. So they're developing this kind of online self-paced course. So, and that's the second kind of role of my job right now. So I'm self-employed. My wife is she's a tutor teaching Mandarin. So I was a Mandarin teacher before. So that's kind of my background. So I kind of know Ning by her colleague. So, and we kind of have cooperated for several cases. And my experience is that, especially if, for the past 7-8 years, working with the high school students, especially the new immigrants, the family, because they are they are family, and the kids are just begin to settle down and kind of merging into this society. So they really don't have too much information, resources, and awareness to plan their major or their life, starting from maybe grade 8, 7, and high school, and when they are in grade 12, so suddenly there's a kind of a shock. Oh, I need to have to decide my major, but I don't know too much about it. So how can I choose? And so basically it's kind of a chaotic university application process. That's why I kind of start to suggesting that you can consider work, together with me. So help the young, teenager students, so they can better prepare their, university major in the long run will be their future job or career. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice, Jack. Okay. Yes, I have, I think it's a pleasure to working with Jack for a few cases, helping these families or their the young kids in grade 8, between grade 8 and grade 10, or sorry, grade 11, to understand themselves a bit better. That's why today I thought I should also, I mean, last time it was in mentoring where we were presenting to a lot of these parents and tell them the importance of career planning in early stages. So that's another huge reason I thought, wow, there's quite a bit of, great discussion in the end and a lot of interactions, which I feel like it's much needed. It's probably way more than what I thought originally it needed. So that's why I thought I should share that with, maybe perhaps the English speaking population, young adults, so forth as well. That's why, hence this particular webinar, to talk a little bit about the importance of early career planning. And hopefully, if you were in high school, but Moran, since you're already in university,
I'm already in
that's
college.
cool. Good, right? No matter what age or I guess what kind of stage you're in, it's always a good idea to truly explore some career options and understand your strength and to go in the direction that is most suitable to you individually, right? So that's sort of, I guess, the main topic of our webinar. So how the whole session goes is this. So we will most likely, me and Jack will kind of turns, ask a few questions to each other, and here I will share my contact information in case in future, or if you logged out by accident, you can rejoin us. So basically, I will start off by kind of, I guess, really emphasizing the importance of early career planning, and then I'll talk a little bit, maybe 10 minutes or so, and ask Jack a few, 1 or 2 questions, and then we'll just kind of have this almost like a forum, like a discussion. So you can anytime, sort of chip in as well, or since you're sort of the major audience here, and obviously Larry as well. But so I'm just gonna start off with, maybe I can even ask you, like, when you were in high school, have you thought about like what to do? And is this currently what you're doing?
So that's why I was interested in the first place. Like I'm from Egypt. I've lived in Egypt my whole life, and I feel like this topic we never discussed. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's kind of like you're either in engineering or you're a doctor. Like, and I talk to my parents a lot, like my friends a lot about it because there's so many other careers that like I was not aware of, and I was like, oh, I didn't know about this. I didn't know about that. And especially for international students like me, like I come here and I'm paying a lot of tuition fees, so even making this decision to switch, it's a whole like capital that my dad doesn't have and can't afford. And there's this whole mentality of no, like, and right now I'm in my last year of geological engineering and I love the program, but for me it was kind of like go into a career where you can make a lot of money and then maybe later on you can decide what you want to do. So it's kind of like you're too deep into something and it's so hard to like come back from it and be like, what do I really like, how can I actually find meaning in all of this? So that's why I was really interested, because I kind of relate that it's never too late. But again, there's so many other like things that come into like planning, like money wise, finance, and especially when your parents are paying your tuition, you feel like you owe them in a certain way. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Oh,
that's
gosh,
basically
wow.
it.
Oh, nice. Thank you
Yeah.
for your kind of the background story there. Okay, I totally feel you. Like I was feeling the same way when I was actually, because my parents sort of wanted me to be independently, you know, some way to figure things out and stuff. So they wasn't able to offer me the tuition coverage, so I have to kind of work my way supporting myself while going to school. So again, similar to you, I feel like you know, there's a huge pressure in terms of making the right decision. And indeed,
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
shame. Like, actually, a lot of school, like, you know, not all, in fact, I think most schools out there, I mean, well, I mean, Larry's from PCIT, but I'm saying like most school out there, like say before you enter the school, right? There's not a whole lot of like kind of courses that really figuring out like what your strength and, you know,
Exactly.
there's a little bit like there are some here like local for local like high school students, which is good. I think this is definitely better than, you know, back in China, for instance. But still I feel like the depth of how like teachers, for instance, to kind of discover your passion or strength and to really understand where you're coming from considering all these factors is not as
Exactly.
comprehensive, yeah, right, as uh, you really do need it to actually wanted to do these. I remember like when I was younger, no one was like inform me of how important it is to actually, you know. So but I did still pay a bit of money before I go into Kwantlen KPU, so there's a college, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I paid a bit of money and just sort of that way kind of figure out, okay, so here are some career choices and these are career choices that suits me, and then I can consider what kind of majors that relate to that, right? So that's sort of,
Yeah.
I would say ideally that will be kind of a nice step to have, but again, it's never too late. So if
Yeah, exactly.
if you already kind of almost finishing your degree or just at the very um, sort of at the beginning of your finding your first job, that's still a really good time to as well understand, you know, where I'm at, like, you know,
Mm.
what kind of strength and what kind of value. And now that you actually have a degree, now we also have to consider how can we utilize your degree to the best way possible, right, to further
Yeah.
approach a job.
Mhm.
But no, like I love your story. So we'll probably talk in a little bit in detail later on as well. But now let me ask, maybe actually let me ask Jack. I have actually, or Mr. Liu. I don't know which way. Jack, would you prefer me
Jack.
to call you Mr. Liu or?
No, that's too formal.
No? Okay,
It's
cool.
Jack.
Jack is good. Okay, awesome. So here I've actually prepared a little bit of a question here to
I'm
share or
scared.
to,
Okay.
yeah, to let's. So here the first
Go ahead.
question here. Let's go right ahead. The first question is, um, so I guess, you know, how, give me an example that you think um, that this has a good, oh, I'm sorry. Actually, no, no, no. I was looking at this slightly wrong. Bear with me here. Okay, okay. Okay, what some sort of career exploration or planning, uh, what does these some sort of planning do for a student's success in terms of their entire, I guess, lifespan? Like what kind of impact will a good uh, career exploration or some sort of career planning, uh, will benefit the students in the long run, I guess.
Well, it's actually, of course, it's very important. Speaking of my experience with the teams, so they do get some support from the school. I believe Larry probably aware of that. You have kids growing up here, maybe not Lauren, but high school they have a career education course. They have to finish 2 courses, so 8 credits in order to graduate from high school. And of course, school have the counselor and career education teacher, so they get some kind of support. But apparently, kids in that kind of age, like 16, 17, they don't have too much idea, about career and what kind of working environment will be, what kind of, work life will be. So they usually don't take the this kind of classes seriously. So just give you an example, a lot of kids mentioned to me that the blueprint, I'm not quite sure. So like Larry, your children, when they are in high school, do they have like blueprint? They do have a blueprint right now. So this kind of a test or program, kids can answer the questions, so they can help you to figure out what's your personality and your learning style, and make some like career field or recommendation suggestions. But most kids told me that I would just finish it like homework, just give it to the teachers. I never pay attention to it.
Yeah.
So you see, the tools are there and the resources are there, but kids is not really making use of that too much, or they don't have the like a mature mentality or a mindset to understand the value of that. So that's why some like external like educational consultant like me kind of step in. So if student or himself or herself or parents, they find that they have this kind of need, and maybe the school counselor, they are not well trained. Some counselors are very experienced, some are really not. For example, one of my daughters, like counselor, she used to be the basketball coach, because she hurt her leg, so she cannot perform that duty, and he was transferred to that position. So apparently she doesn't have too much experience in coaching the kids into planning their high school and go to the university. So in this case, that students and families, they have this kind of need. So they are professionals like you and Larry there, so we can always look for help from professional trained coaches like that to even help the young kids to plan their future major and job. But not only young teens though, and even for myself, I'm kind of just pondering the Lauren's, your story. So for myself, I grew up in a countryside in China. I never received any kind of a career or major guidance from my parents, because they don't have knowledge to guide me, and from my teacher, because there's no kind of awareness that the students need to be taught or coached, and not from my university undergraduate teachers, professors, because they are not supposed to, they don't have this kind of training as well. Because I was graduate from a teacher's university, so you're supposed to go to your countryside where you're from and to be a teacher there. And only my master, like was a mentor, and he kind of helped me figure out a little bit, after you graduate from your master, what kind of a job you could. And I will make some connections, my students, working in that kind of a company, you can make connection to that. So in a private channel. So I do think kids here, like my daughter, very fortunate. And this society prepare for the kids and for the young adults, for the uni immigrants, for the international students in your school, in Lauren's school. They always have a career counselor. So I think it's very, very important. That's one reason. And another reason is that I do realize that in the Western society, I'm not quite sure about Egypt, but certainly not in China now. But Western society, the professions become so specified. They have so many professions, even like organizations. So it's very difficult to navigate for the kids to differentiate, certain career paths. So we have a general idea, I'm not really good at math, so I shouldn't study counting. like this, but they are not really into that kind of a specific, really informed decision they can make. So I do think the career planning from, you know, school or, you know, consultant or the professional like coaches like you are very good, not only for the teens, but also even for me. I'm thinking about my story again, back to, so I'm thinking, you know, we have another term for life coaching. So sometimes I think there's no too much probably difference between career coaching and life coaching, because you know, career certainly not only a career. Career is something you should enjoy, right? So it's part of your life. So ideally, it should be part of your life. So, you know, sometimes I need to think, you know, if I have a chance like Ning you have, I will probably go through all these kind of, you know, like yeah, questionnaires or whatever career test. You know, I want to understand a little bit more better myself. I just kind of feel by myself, by intuition. Not really a good way, but of course it's important, but it's not really a kind of a comprehensive way.
Right. No, I have to validate. No, sometimes your intuition sometimes is also a very good
It's
tool.
very important.
Absolutely,
Yes, true.
you can still rely on that. And of course, mentor, like what you mentioned, is also a huge,
Yeah.
like super important factor. So I have to thank Larry. Some of my very important positions in this industry was actually introduced by Larry. So, you know,
Okay.
super important key person as well, that support
Yeah.
network. And like you said, right. So sometimes these assessment tools. So when you're doing career exploration, Norin, I would say things absolutely like what Mr. or Jax mentioned about like these career assessment tools, you know, figuring out all these things, you know, in a systematic way. So all these, there are tons of resources out there that actually are, enable you to really you know, scientifically proven to give you a very solid understanding of who you are. And self-awareness is actually the foundation and the very step for doing any career planning. So, I mean, just like what Jack mentioned, I have to relate to in terms of like how at the age when I was in grade of 12, I even though they give that course, I know it's important, but I wasn't as fully, you know, it hasn't clicked here yet. I just thinking, oh, it's fine. It's just a course. Let me just quickly, you know, go over it, get the credits. I wasn't thinking or relating that to like my whole life or how is that important for my future success or the happiness or all that. I was just thinking, oh, cool, you know, let me quickly finish this homework and done and send. And that's it. So when I was asking clients as well, majority of them, like what Jack said, they don't actually know their results. So after I asked them, so, you know, for instance, some of the career assessment tools, right? Career cruising, or you mentioned about Blueprint, there's a few other ones like Who Wants Cold, or we do a lot of activities, being, you know, all sorts of ways, or personality dimensions, or 16 personalities, 1, 2, 3 tests, there's a whole bunch. So when I asked them, some of them would say, oh yeah, I remember doing that. But I say, so what is the result, or do you want to share your finding? And they will usually, I don't think they remember that, or they just say, oh no, like I just sort of did it and it's gone. So I think that's why to bring that awareness, like the importance of really treating this as part, it's one step of the whole chain of this planning process. You know, that's like your first step, right? So without that, you can't really go on for the future steps with confidence. I mean, you could still obviously land with careers and positions you're eventually going to enjoy, just like what perhaps Jack or you know, Larry or myself. But no, I myself actually I did a bunch of planning. So I would say comparatively to some of my classmates who actually finished university, you know, same as me, good friends, very good friends, a few of them are still struggling to find a meaningful job that they find, hey, I'm satisfied, or, you know, actually some of them, 2% of them, are unable to find any jobs at all within a year. Like the entire year, they're just so lost. They don't know, what am I going to do with my degree? Like, why did I choose that major? I don't know. It just sort of happened. And so that's why I feel like before you even enter into the college, or before you go on to your first job, to really have some thought, put some thoughts into the process, really understand sort of this whole picture, you know, how does the career planning go, and what is the first step, right? Like I mentioned, career exploration would be the first step, but why is it super important to really understand yourself? And what does career assessment do, right? So thank you, Jack. That was a really good point there. So now I'm going to ask you the second question here. So how do you increase your self-awareness? You know, I mentioned a little bit about career assessment tools. And do you feel like there's any blind spots? So, I mean, last webinar, we had, a few parents who joined us and then talk a little bit about, their parents' perspective, because we always have, we always have some sort of, I guess, ideas of our children, or maybe like, for all of us, like we have ideas of ourselves and we have ideas of others around us. And for instance, Lorraine, her situation, do you think there are blind spots for her, and or what are some ways that she could increase her self-awareness?
Are you asking me?
Yes, yes, please.
Or me? Oh, okay. Of course, everybody has the blind spot. It's particularly, I think, grew up in a Chinese culture. So in a sense, Chinese culture is very traditional education. It's very hierarchy kind of a style. So you are really, parents and teachers are way high above you. So basically you are not really treated as a kind of a equal individual. So the blind spot was coming from there. So I never, I shouldn't say never, but it's very late for me to start to think, I'm a individual, and I should be responsible for what my decision, and bear the consequences. I'm a little bit better than some of my friends, because starting from like grades 8, 7, 8, I start to make decisions, and after I make a decision, I tell my parents. They can't help too much because they are in the countryside, like 50 kilometers away. So when a message gets to them, I already made a decision. So that's my kind of personality. But I shouldn't say that I have really a strong awareness about myself, because there's no other way can help me, give me this kind of a reflection. I mean, the education system is basically told you the knowledge, and you should remember, and you get the text well and get a good score. That's it. So that's seldom that's kind of a equal, open conversation between the students, classmates, and between me and the teacher. I unfortunately that's the case I experienced 20 years ago in Chinese study. It is only when I start to teach in graduate school, you offer teaching assistant, so you teach in the university. So that's the time you think about yourself. So what kind of person, or what kind of knowledge you want to present, how you present it into the classroom. And that's the time I start to think of you have my self-awareness. So the blind spot comes, I think, from your family education, from your culture, and from, of course, your experience. For example, I'm always in the school, either a student or a teacher, or helping students right now. So I always need kind of education field. So my expertise will be in this field, but my blind spot also coming because of my personal working experience. So for example, I don't have good knowledge about finance, and not good at math, and not kind of it's part of my self identification that I don't want to touch that. My high school, when I choose the majors, I delete everything related to math. So accounting, no way. So it's my blind spot. So I'm actually, being a business owner, I have to teach myself that, no, I need to educate myself now for the finance, for the business kind of, awareness. So just example, yeah.
Nice, good. Thank you, Jack. And hi, Nick, did you just join us? You were a little bit, thanks for.
Hi, Nick.
Hey, how are you?
Hi,
Hi, Nick.
Just got home.
No worries, no worries. I'm glad you're able to join us. We were just, like I said, we were halfway, well, we were kind of discussing, I guess, some questions here. Me and Jack from Half Moon Foundation here, we're just exchanging some conversations and share some thoughts. So feel free, you as well, if you want to jump in, or if I ask you, you can, we'll leave the later half or the end a little bit for any questions and stuff. But yeah, since we know each other already beforehand, it's fine. And I'm pretty sure that you're also good. And if for those of you, or Nick, if you want to quickly introduce yourself so that the rest of us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick, and I'm currently working for a post-secondary institution called Accent School of Management. And I also had the pleasure to meet Larry before. We had a fun conversation together a few months ago. And I used to be a Ning's client, and I really enjoyed the workshops she presented, which is the main
Very
reason
nice.
I want to be here tonight.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Great.
Welcome,
Thanks for
Nick.
joining us. Yeah. So Nick, unfortunately today I won't have like a really, I guess, content crazy workshop kind of phase. It was just a very more so of a discussion forum type of
Yes.
webinar. So it's a slightly different format, but I'm sure you will still learn something from this for sure. So earlier, I have to a little bit piggyback on some of Jack's idea. I feel like blind spot. I think all of us have because based on our unique experiences, our cultural awareness, and our background, upbringing, and the information we receive, and which I think that is actually one of the biggest parts. Where when I got, I guess when I was in SFU doing the career development practitioner certificate, there were so many like aha moments. I was impressed and also embarrassed by the limited information I gathered before getting to this, before I getting to any job. So prior to getting into this field, right? I thought, just sort of, there's a lot of assumptions. There's a lot of assumptions prior to me getting into the field and thinking, oh, if someone is not good at math, immediately I'm thinking, okay, then definitely, perhaps not finance or not any of these fields. But then eventually I learned there are a lot of, I guess, I don't want to say prejudice or anything, but you sometimes wear tinted glasses when you're seeing all these jobs or these career paths. So without knowing too much detail and without doing comprehensive research, someone could easily get a false idea of what a career or a position is, and then going into it with a different kind of expectation. So I think it is absolutely critical. So one of the key things, other than career assessment, to bring your self-awareness is also to talk to people who actually is working in the field and really get some first-hand idea of what truly that job is about, right? So like some of us, actually majority of us have some basic networking skills, and that's sort of really greatly helped us in finding our passion and really eventually started working in the field we enjoy. But the process obviously will be way better, I feel like, if you have a pretty clear idea. So for anything, right? Anything in life, it's the best when you can set a goal. And then based on that goal, then you start to backtrack and thinking, oh, okay, so eventually if I wanted to be in this spot, let's see what I can do right now. So what's the first step? And then have a few little sort of like action planning steps, right? So when you know, okay, this is my SMART goal. This is the goal I think is realistic, attainable, time bound and all that. And I think, yes, within about 5 years or so, this is the position I would like to be in. And these are some of the options that really matches my personality, value, interest, and characteristics. And also because you have a degree, match your degree. So then how am I going to combine all these, set a goal, and then start to look for the very first step? So what is the first action step? What is the very, very first step that I need to achieve right now? So for instance, for you, I would really recommend perhaps really do some career assessment tools, figuring out what are some, within about 4 or 5 different career paths. These would be something you can consider, and then start to dive in a little bit more by talking to, doing informational interviews. That's what we call, right? Talking to the people working in the field and gathering more information and validate. Yes, indeed. Right?
Okay, he's back. She's back.
Oh, sorry, or something happen? Everything's good? Oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes there is a bit of I think internet could be a bit, oh, okay, good. Maybe, I think Jack was frozen there for a little bit. Okay. Maybe, I'm not sure if it's my internet, but if at any point you guys are like, no, I couldn't hear you, Ning, just type somewhere or, yeah, okay, very nice. And Larry also shared as well that from, Hofstede's cultural dimensions, that blind spots can be culturally based. I absolutely agree. So there are a lot of things that we subconsciously or unconsciously, I shouldn't subconsciously, unconsciously absorb without realizing, because it just happens so naturally. For instance, I actually wrote an article not long ago about some of the stereotypical views towards, for instance, trades. So right, or even artistic careers, like what Larry said at the very beginning. So most parents, or like say in Asian backgrounds or something, I don't want to overgeneralize, but Chinese, because I'm Chinese. So I can say most Chinese parents will have a pretty set idea of like what is considered a ideal job, or what is a better type of job. So in their mind, there is a bit of a, almost, I don't want to say hierarchy, but there is a preferred industry, and there is some jobs that they would rather their kids to consider than others. But I have to say, in Canada, there are a lot of differences. There are things that's very different than back home. So here, for instance, like what Jack mentioned, right? Trades or, artistic, as long as you're doing well in any field, you're actually be respected and receive equal, if not more, amount of salary. So for instance, trades, that's like biggest field where a lot of, Chinese parents overlook, and they think, oh no, like what, why would you do like the hands, if you're in construction, they will look down and think, well, no, that's not a good job to consider. But in reality, I've met many, really fulfilled and very happy, content, and well salaried tradesperson. And so like what Jack mentioned, a lot of these actually does also take specialization. Like it's not just simply think, oh, I don't have other options, I'm going to go do this. That's not the case. For most jobs here in Canada, you need to get a red seal, for trades, you need to get a red seal, license of some sort for anything, to perform, to practice, to be able to recognize as a industry expert. So that's why that add on to even more so the importance of recognizing your path early on, so you can really truly plan and not sort of waste your just sort of change. I mean, I've seen some of my classmates change majors, several times, and in the end give up altogether. I've seen people who dropped out, realized, the university is actually not my thing, and some of them are actually quite successful. Some of them, in the traditional view of how a Chinese parent, they would think, oh, they finished university, now my kid should be able to get any job they want, but that's actually not the case. So just because you graduate with a reputable degree and with maybe even a little bit of experience doesn't equal to immediate, getting to the right field and receiving recognition and all that things. So all these does take a lot of careful planning and systematic way, in a very holistic approach. It's not just like sort of, thought on the spot. Like, okay, here, I'm just gonna go into this field. Although I have to say, in general, it would be still a good idea to probably test the water by not only talking to the people working in the field, but yourself, maybe volunteer, do some hands-on, like yourself, merge yourself into some environment and see, oh, do I like, hey, I think I actually, enjoy, say, talking to people more than I thought, or, oh, I really dislike math, this is absolutely something I don't want to touch. So the more you do experimental learning, which I'm a full believer of experimental learning, the more you do all these kind of similar kind of experiment, so to speak, or to learn more about you by doing, the more you are going to know about yourself, and the more truth there is in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Great. Okay. So any questions? We're good so far? Let me just go right ahead into the third question then. And there were actually, sorry, let me just quickly check, make sure there's no other.
I have a question. Yeah. It's just because I have a meeting at 7, I had this question. So for people in college, and one thing I agree, especially in engineering, people think that if they're not good at math or anything, they can be in engineering, which is totally wrong, because there's so many different fields in engineering, and the one I'm doing, like geological or civil, like geological engineering, and it's mostly about the geology and the environmental sciences rather than doing math and physics. So this is something that I would have never have thought of deciding on a major, but like it happened. So one of the things that I wanted to ask for people like in university right now, and I'm graduating, and I want to like work for a few years and see how it goes, how would you recommend like knowing your strong skills and applying it to a different field. Say for instance, like I'm really interested in like neuroscience and like psychology, like because my problem is like having interest in so many different things that
Yeah.
it's like it's always like, but in another, like in another path I would have been really good at this, you know, like making up your mind on something.
Right. Thank you. That's, I would say I have the similar kind of confusion too, because the thing is, yeah, like with, there are good and bad coming out with the multi-potentialite, or a person with many different interests, and a person who's probably usually academically versatile. So if you're pretty okay with or your grades are pretty good in, you know, multiple subjects, then you're thinking, well, how am I gonna actually make the sort of right decisions? It's definitely tough, right? Like, I mean, I don't think there is a straightforward, like, you know, right or wrong answer, so to speak. But it's a matter of, you know, how much do you actually, so you really have to look at what you need. What is your current like situation right now, right? So if you need right now, if you just wanted to gain some knowledge of different, maybe, okay, so you have to consider your situation. So with the Loblaws law, right, some people, you know, if you don't have the shelter and enough food, you won't think of the secondary or the higher up of the pyramid thing. But the thing is, right now it sounds like you are thinking about either going into higher education or if you're going to go into career. Is that kind of your puzzling part as well? So you have to consider, yeah, let's be, you know, realistic. Let's look at your situation. So do you have enough money to kind of support yourself while you're here? Since you also mentioned about international you know, students, which does get charged quite a bit more than other domestic students. So you have to really consider, okay, is it sort of worth my time to go into higher education, or is it a better or does it better suit my need when I start working? Maybe really gain some perspective that way. And I usually I encourage students or clients, or, you know, my clients, not to sort of over analytical or overthinking. Like, I mean, obviously it's great. Like, once you have a vision, you just gotta move forward a little bit, because you cannot ever see the full picture. We would never have the God's vision. You know, we cannot see like, oh, what's gonna be ahead. Nobody can predict. Nobody knows that this COVID thing is gonna last this long, but that's the case. So there are a lot of factors you just cannot control. So what's the best thing to do is really based on what you need, the situation right now, and gather up all these factors and make the most informed decisions you can at this moment and move forward toward that direction. Then maybe your perspective will change, or you need to alter your just you know, next step decisions and all that. That's fine, but it's impossible to sort of, you know, plan your next 5 years you know, in detail. I don't think it's wise indeed to actually do all that, because, you know, I'm also a firm believer of Jim Bright's chaos theory. Like, there's no point. Like, it would be a best thing just for you to look at, okay, if I needed to, for instance, if I don't have enough money to actually continue with the higher education, or if that's way too costly, then think about, okay, why don't I try some work experience? Let me really understand myself better before you jump into another, you know, another few years of investment. All these are investment, right? You got to really think in terms of, is this the best decision I can make? Is this the you know, sort of the right investment? I don't like to use the word right. There's no right or wrong, but, you know, like, you really have to think about this. So for me, I would almost always suggest you to figure things out a little bit more before you jump into more education, because yeah, again, it's a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of energy that you put into this, right? And you don't want to be like some of my classmates who ended up kind of coming out with a bachelor degree and not sure what to do with it, and which is super unfortunate. Yeah, and Larry also mentioned, yeah, you would end up digging yourself into a deeper hole than you cannot back out of. So no matter what, I think it's always a good idea to really test the water first. Like, you know, to, like, for instance, our receptionist at our agency, so she actually dropped out of school like the first year because she realized, no, university is not for me. And indeed, not all school system fit for everybody, and not all education will pay off in the end. I've seen many cases like that. So it would be good for you to actually just really considering a few sort of career options, and to really have a clear idea, like what target you're shooting for, before you just dive right into the ocean. You know, a goalless kind of state is not a very clear state, and you don't want to be in that kind of state for too long. You know, the more you think about it, oh no, but I also like this and also like that. I always feel like actually client know the answer deep down in the heart. I mean, sure, at certain moments you will find it's tempting to try to look into some other alternative options, but once you kind of have some sort of deep conversation with, you know, career expert like me, maybe a coach or something, to really to take that self-narrative approach where you dig deep in your own thinking, your own mind, and then you will find answers within you. But I sound a little zen, but that's true. Like I mean, a lot of times I will know the answer, you actually know the answer. But I will just provide the resources, the assessments, the tools, and all that stuff to make it a little bit, to bring some clarity in that process. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
Answer your
really,
question?
really helpful. That's really helpful. Yeah, thank you
Okay.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. That's a great question. Okay, so I think there was the last question, right, Jack? Or did we cover? I think there is. Okay, I think that's most of what my question. Because Jack, when you were talking, you already covered some of my the first question there. So there's also a few more since our poster, you know, mentioned about these. Maybe I'll quickly talk about that too. So our agenda mentioned that we're going to talk a little bit why high school should be the golden years of career planning, but don't worry, even if you pass that stage, it's never too late. It's always a good thing to start. It's better late than never, right? Or not late, I don't even consider this late. It's, you are already ahead of many others who probably finished their entire career and realize, wait, this is not something I enjoy to do, or totally, you know, like I totally hate to go to work. And they had that realization, maybe like, you know, probably even close to retirement. That is what I consider a real late. But even then, like, I mean, it's still a good idea that have that weakening. So for you, there's still tons of potential. There's the whole future is in front of you. So it's still very good to learn. Now, some benefits of having a plan. Like I said, you know, it would be a really good idea to really have a vision for yourself, right? And then so the more clear the vision, the more faster, the more efficient you're going to get to that point. And in terms of how do we understand oneself better, so I mentioned about career assessment tools. You do some you know, self-narrative. You can do actually yourself. There's a lot of free assessment out there as well. So maybe I can ask you, Jack, what distinguish us, like, you know, a career expert, or even Larry? I mean, you guys can chip in. So what distinguish us, like, you know, so like a career coach, to say a university? Maybe you also have career advisor, right, at UBC. So what distinguish us from maybe the UBC career advisor? Jackie.
Well, of course, I'm not the certified coach in terms of career planning, but I do have a lot of experience with the, you know, students, especially high school students, you know, past 7 years, and also my teaching career in Singapore, also the high school students. So I certainly can see the value of, you know, at least start a conversation with the kids, or your friends' kids, you know, in the age of like grades 8 and 7. So it's very valuable. Start the conversation and make the information and the resources available for them. So let them know, right? And also, you know, they are young, so they are not really adults. So you need to probably a little bit push to kind of bring them to, you know, to the professionals, or to the school counselors, you know, to get some tools, get some assessments done, and talk to the teachers and in the school.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jack. And I also want to add on there a little bit too. So even though I absolutely think it's a valuable resource, so do take advantage, you know, of all the existing resource you already have. So for instance, the UBC career advising session, you know, book sessions, book meetings with the counselor there, and really seek some advice and really understand yourself better that way. But I have to admit that even though, I mean, I went to UBC as well. So even though they do provide some insights, it wouldn't be as comprehensive as somebody like, you know, me, who's actually looking at you as just an individual. So for instance, when I remember when I was in UBC, a lot a lot of their focus was more so, oh, okay, so each session will have a goal, right? So for instance, if it's more of a short term kind of thing. So I think we're looking at, okay, what is your, what are your strengths, and what, I don't think they will take that time actually really to get to know you and really like doing all these systematic, planning and have all these sort of a long-term approach where they're looking at your whole, your success as this journey. But most of them were just only like, okay, if you book appointment for maybe perhaps tweeting your resume. So the session would be primarily focusing and working on the resume piece. So maybe after 2 sessions, okay, great, now you have a great resume. And a lot of their, I think the coaching or support might not be as in depth as well. So again, it would be primarily like, okay, so I don't want to say surface, but if you're going in for the career advising, most of their choices would be, either looking at your resume or maybe looking at your cover letter, or, anything that's already, I think the tail end of, after you realizing yourself, after you have a full awareness, after you really understand yourself and know your directions and all that, then you probably can go in and have a little bit of helping there. But ultimately, having someone actually really truly based on your perspective. So for instance, all of us have, for instance, school, they might have agenda where they want to keep you as a student, right? If you're thinking, oh, for instance, if the colleague who joined us talked to the school counselor, they might say, well, no, you're great, you should stay with us, take more classes. So that would be from the perspective of the student. They're only looking at, okay, we want to make sure that the student will be in with their school, for instance, or something like that. So it's a different kind of perspective. And not to say there's anything wrong with it, of course, but if you truly wanted to, again, have that holistic approach and really long-term goal met, and perhaps talking to one of us, talking to me maybe, like, would be a bit of a better approach. Of course, the benefits of talking to career advisors perhaps in school is that it's free service. So that part is absolutely very beneficial, but feel free to add in as well, Larry and Nick. What do you guys feel like, what you can see? What are some of the things you see in the post-secondary career advising? In comparison to, say, someone who's sort of like outside of that.
I think maybe I can chime in on this one, because I do work at the at post-secondary institution that is strictly really career oriented, because nobody comes to BCIT to discover themselves or find out what they want to do. They basically come to BCIT, I want to take this program because I want to get this skill to do this type of job. So the way we interact with students is very much, okay, what program are you in? And okay, these are the job options. Let's figure out a best way to help you transition from skill to employment. The reality is, though, sometimes we do get, if the student if that is what they want. So we never just jump right in. We always have the preamble, talk, and find out, try to dig a little bit deeper, and whatever the student wants to disclose. So if they say, I took the program, but I'm not sure if I like it. I don't know what I want to do. So we dig a little bit deeper. We bring in our counseling skills, because I work for the Student Association. I don't work for the school. I don't care if they continue to take the bachelor's program after their diploma program, okay, or the diploma program after the student program. The only point I might care is if they tell me they want to get a specific job and they don't have the academic requirements for it or the skills enough to do it. So they only take a certificate program 1 year and they don't have enough skills to compete for a job that requires a diploma or a bachelor's. Right? Then I would maybe recommend, hey, maybe you need to get more training to be competitive. So that being said, I'm very holistic, as you said. I'm out, and I discovered my profession like 16 years ago. And I transitioned from industry, and the main reason was because I got bored and tired and wasn't that happy doing what I was doing, so I transitioned. So I think the way we work with students, and maybe it's a little bit different than other academic institutions, because as I said, I don't care what program that they take. All I care is about student, whatever their goal is. And just to get a job, or is it to find out, the experiment? And we do encourage experimentation through internships and co-op with the normal offerings, right? But we're also I'm also aware, and most of my colleagues, all of my colleagues, actually there's 5 of us, we have different portfolios, but but we work with all students, and we always ask the question, two things, couple of things. We ask, what are you really good at school?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you really like to do? Because you could be really good at something but hate it. Okay.
Mm.
So, and as for long-term career happiness, not just job, getting a job,
Mhm.
getting a job is part of the process of ultimately hopingly finding career happiness and life happiness. But
Mhm.
ultimately, I'm more interested in the career that you might want to migrate to.
Okay.
So when you finish your degree in RM, maybe it's that you do try to get something in geography, related to geography, but it may be something adjunct to geography that can utilize all the skills that you learned,
Mhm.
right? Like, analyzing data, demographics. There are actually social demographers or social geologists, well, not geologists, but social geography, right? In terms of social housing and all that sort of stuff. So there's lots of different places where you can sort of combine what your technical hard skills are and translate them to your things that you really care about, right? But, in terms of the approach that we take, as I said, because we work for the Student Association and because basically we report to the student executive. We're a nonprofit, we report to the students, we don't report to the institution. We have no agenda to keep you in school. We have our agenda is to help you transition the way you want to transition. So our approach is different, and hence somebody like Ning and Jack, they have no interest in keeping you in school or getting you into a particular company. Their goal is to help you figure out what is the best path for you, right? And they're not going to tell you what to do. Their style, I'm going to assume, is that they're going to invoke questions and invoke thought, invoke reflection, so that they will guide you and help you sort of figure it out. Because the really important piece is feedback. Because if you take a course, if you don't get tested, you don't know whether you actually learned anything or not. That's one way, right? But the other thing is, if you go for something happens. Let's say you go for a job interview and you don't debrief for somebody, you don't know how well that you actually did to prepare you for the next one. Or maybe you don't know, actually you took a career planning course or career exploration, but then you don't do anything with that information because you didn't have somebody to coach you through the self-reflection process.
Yes.
And that's where somebody like Ning and Jack and any career advisor can do. They can ask you the right questions to make you think, so that you can arrive at a decision that's based on your entire set of knowledge, plus all the extra knowledge that you didn't have before. Right?
Thank you.
Nice.
Very good.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Larry. Yes, you add on some of the points, and I have to piggyback on that. Absolutely. So that I have to highlight is probably one of the sort of the strengths of having your own personal career coach, because in terms of interpretation administration piece, right? So this is a very important process. And then, I mean, not just distinguishing, but if our goal is really trying to help you to reach to your particular career goal, right? And make sense of some of the results, or some of the kind of almost like helping you to connect the dots a little bit, and to really interpret and make the results meaningful to you. How do you apply those? And so even though there are online free assessment tools out there or things like that, this interpretation process, this sort of making sense process, is one of the key part. It's actually, indeed, I think it's even more important than doing the test. So that part is absolutely super important and very helpful, for you to receive some support. And yes, what Larry, Larry is amazing mentor of mine, and I know his expertise, but you do need to be in BCIT in order to get his help.
Or alumni. And what is funny, because a lot of students, 30% of our student population at BCIT have university degrees already.
Yeah.
Because they're still lost, right?
Yeah.
Or alumni that have recently lost their jobs because of COVID or whatever. So they keep coming back. But that being said, it's that piece that you were saying about sense making, making sense. Sense making is super important when you're thinking about a lifelong career. And the other thing I want to mention is, when you work with a career counselor, a career advisor, or a job coach or a career coach, or whatever you want to call yourselves, is that you're not going to have just one career. Like changing your major 3 or 4 times is not uncommon for university students, but changing your careers is even more common. So, unless you dig yourself so far, if you went all the way to school to be a doctor, you're probably going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
for the rest of your life. You're not going to change, right, to something else and become an acrobat at a circus, right? Because one, you have all these bills to pay, and number two, people will think you're crazy. After 20 years of schooling, you become an acrobat in a circus, right? But somebody who's coming up with a bachelor's, or, you know, it might be that you do want to be a geologist, right? But knowing more is always good, better than knowing not enough, because those blind spots, sometimes they're put there because of cultural background, parental background, peer background, institutional blinders, because they want you to be successful and transition to a job in your field. Because every 2 years, they send out a survey for the Ministry of Education that says, are you working in the field that you learned, that you went to school for? And if the stats don't come back that 90% of the students are applying their skills, then the school looks bad, right? So there is some hidden sort of stuff there, but that's, you know, in terms of for your own needs, working with the independent career advisor is a good option. You know, let me give you one other extreme example. If you ever end up at a Work BC office, and I've worked in those, they do great work, but they are, one of the mandates is to get people off of income assistance or EI as quickly as possible. So they're going to steer you, take this job type of thing. And although they do those other things, but they have limits as what they can do. While the career coach, they can work with you as long as you need, right?
Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Larry. That's a point I also forgot to point out. Yes, I mean, there are obviously free services out there as well, such as, you know, like what Larry mentioned about Work BC and whatnot. But again, we all, like, I also work in the nonprofit, so I understand all of us have like a mandate to follow, a very strict mandate. So first thing is you got to actually be eligible. So not all programs fit you. So there could be, you know, cases where maybe starting time is very different or strict, like workshop based kind of thing, or maybe this particular program is designed only for, say, administrative type of work. So after you finish this program, they expect you to find administrative related kind of things. So one, it's a pretty tough thing to navigate along all these different programs and to find the one that fit you, and to actually also be able to have the right schedule, and yeah, like, you know, and the person also is super important, right? This person might have sort of I don't want to say agenda, but like they do have to meet a certain goal. You know, off EI or something, and yeah, entry-level jobs usually is what they would probably push for, or something that just want you to, you know, check success, you know, kind of thing. So certainly they're not probably coming from entirely from the client's perspective, or coming from you know, your point of view. Like, how do we gonna actually purely everything, absolutely every step of the way is based on your needs, your situation, your consequences. How are we gonna make the best out of what you have, and what goal do you have? So it's more very client-centered this way, where we're really looking at you, and the results is until you are happy. You know what I mean? So it's a slightly different approach there. And I see that you also ask, how did you discover your new career? Oh, is that towards Larry? Okay, so maybe question, if you don't mind. Oh no, okay, you're muted. Okay. Okay. Oh, right. You're sending. There you
This
go.
is not uncommon. Some sort of job change. You know, I got to a place, my contract ended, and I didn't like doing that last job that I did. So what do I really like to do? And by that time, I did this career change by my late 40s. Okay, so it's never too late. All right, at my age right now, I'm going to retire. I could retire in a couple of years. I'm not going to make another career change. I love my job, but I reflected back, right? But you can't reflect back until you've done something. So sometimes you need to stick your foot somewhere,
Yeah.
right? And
It's
try
true.
it and see what you
Just
like,
start
see what you
somewhere.
love. And, you know, and sometimes it requires a shocking moment. It says, man, I really hate my job. Or sometimes I really love my job. I'm going to continue in it. You might find that, man, I love geology. I can see so many opportunities. I did a co-op. Man, I'm going to pursue a master's so I can be this, right? You know, work at the Ministry of Forests and Environment and do this, right? Because to be competitive, I need a master's, right? But you can get great careers without a master's, but you can go back and get a master's later. You know,
Yeah.
my wife and I both went to BCIT, both with 2-year diplomas. She's way more successful than I am, But she went back, and I went back and did my bachelor's, and then 10 years later, she went back and did her master's to get her MBA, right? So it's not too late, but it requires self-reflection, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Thank you for reinforcing that. Thank you. Nice, Larry. Okay, so we're kind of almost at the very tail end here. So thank you for Larry for sharing that. And Jack, you know, we've kind of exchanged. Do you have anything add on as well, Jack? I think there was supposed to be some questions that you also can ask me, but I think I kind of
those
covered.
questions is more to you know, geared to the audience, the parents. So we can skip that one though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess, yeah, then we covered, I think, majority of what we have in our agenda. And here we also have what are your core values, interests, and strength skills. So these, again, would be some of the things pretty critical to helping you decide your career path. So this also is like what Larry mentioned about this reflective approach where we would help you to figure those things out before you know, further going in any decision making. And yeah, is there a link between career choice and or school? So yeah, again, this one is probably towards a little bit high school type of students, but like what Larry said there, you know, nowadays in this modern era, it's almost, especially in developed countries, in North America, I find that having a few different careers is no longer a sort of something strange. I mean, and nowadays it's almost strange if you stick to one career for your entire life, because the change, you know, there's constant change in all things, you know, environmental life. So sorry. So okay, let me.
I just kind of have a, you know, when Larry talk about, and we talk about the self-reflection thing. I do think that, you know, if we reflect always by ourselves, then we always operate the interpretation within our blind spot, within our framework. So this is kind of dangerous. Yeah. So you never chance, you have never a chance to kind of get over yourself. So I think it's very important to have a, you know, a person really kind of being your career coach or life coach. So somebody you can kind of always talk to, you know, bring kind of a neutral or third person perspective. And I just realized that today. Although I should say I realized it before, but I didn't realize they're so serious, you know? So I need to talk to somebody. You cannot always rely on yourself. It's very important, of course. That's, you know, that's authenticity about yourself, but that's something really, you know, limit yourself, because that's, nobody can have all, you know, job or career experience. So it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sorry about that.
no,
Nice. Thank you, Jack.
I have a realization. So I just share with them.
Nice.
I can talk to you later.
Awesome.
You know, I think one of the biggest things that you can remember, Naran, is that you don't know what you don't know, and that's why you need to talk to other people. People who have a different perspective, different ideas. Hey, very important. I really need to look at this a little bit deeper. Or and assessments and reflection assessments is not just a checklist. Yeah, that's just doing the test, but analyzing why you picked that and how do I demonstrate my liking of this, or how have I demonstrated this? And then you can really understand, actually, I do a lot of that. I'm really good at it, but I really hate it, you know? So having a third party from the outside who's not blinded by your experience, but who has a wealth of other experiences can ask the right questions for you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good, Larry. And yeah, now that you mentioned that, I forgot to also quickly add in about the burnout skills. So, I mean, yeah, like what Larry said there are actually a few kind of reflective tools where you can sort of dive in and see, okay, some of the things I'm actually really good at, but those skills could be some of the burnout skills. So what are some of the skills you actually not only good at, but you enjoy using those skills? Because some people naturally are just pretty good at certain things, but they were kind of almost forced into doing, not forced, but like, you know, you don't really have the opportunity to pause and think, oh yeah, like actually, you know, these are some of, if you ever do go into a career or a job and you realize later on, oh wow, no, like this will be something I'm good at, people keep asking me to do, but actually those are burnout skills. So for me, I should probably avoid those so I can keep myself happy and content in this job and eventually get to the future, this career design career path. But yeah, there's no sort of, I guess, fixed answer in any way. There's multiple ways to get there. just about having that willingness and open mind, and to having the right resource and the person to help you to get there. And usually it does save quite a bit of, you know, time and energy, because you know, I've really personally seen people who really struggling in this process, and eventually either have to go back to school for entirely something very different, which, you know, is fine if you do have the time and sort of the money and all that. But in most cases, I think it's just very wise to think a little bit, you know, before you start to explore all these options, either education-wise or career-wise. So yeah, I hope that's kind of helpful. So the last 12 minutes or so, would you, Noran, wanted to ask any questions for any of us, or any
So
clarification?
Lauren, you're giving up your lesson. You have a 7 o'clock lesson or class.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's fine. We pushed it. I pushed it right now. No, that was so helpful. That was really, really helpful. It gave me, it's just so most of the time, like, you get so lost, and everyone that is lost, they're still at the same stage of life. So it's kind of like, even when I ask like my friends or someone, they're like, I don't know, like, we'll see how this goes. Like, no one knows. And for me, it's, I don't want to, like, I hate the idea of the sunk cost bias, where I have to keep on doing it because I was in it for so long, and like the whole point is doing something that you think well, I think my internet connection got off a bit, but yeah, like all of the tips you guys were sharing, it's really important, because like you said, it's something that no one thinks. Like, I reflect back when I was 18 or 19, I never thought of anything. It was like me filling an application and be like, oh, like this looks like a good choice. But then when I came to college, I found like so many different like things that I could have been like good at. And like, even with my career, like I've been in school for 6 years, and I've done a lot of co-ops, different co-ops, and it's kind of like I like it, but it's not like I see myself, like they was saying, being so passionate about it that I want to be the best at it. Where it's like, I like it and I can do it, but it's not like I love it. So this like kind of brings this reflection phase of like knowing that this is like, thinking about this is the right track, and not just sticking with it because I'm in it. So that was really good.
Nice, good. Wow, it sounds like you definitely gained some really in-depth thoughts there. It was really good. I'm glad that you find our conversation insightful there, and would help you in some way, right? So again, if you've ever wanted to kind of have any further like really deep conversations, and or just really discuss and really understand your situation, I do offer these kind of services, and you can check on my website as well. But you can just talk to me, and then after this free consultation, you know, figure out, okay, what is the price range or any of those details. But for now, yeah, you think about it, and obviously I'll have more relevant kind of this webinar coming up like every 2 weeks or so. So you can either keep following, you know, joining more of these and learning a bit more tips further, or you can directly just start this process with me. It's up to you, but I'm definitely super excited to help.
From here. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, good. So I think we were probably, since we don't, I don't know what happened to the rest of the people, but since we don't have as, you know, sort of other questions or maybe people to kind of other people to join, I probably was just slightly earlier, if all of you are okay. But maybe like before we end the whole conversation, let's just share like one. No, I forgot to do the check-in in the very beginning. I was just kind of glad dive right in. But how do you feel? So why don't we just share one word of how do you feel about today's session? I mean, I can start first. I think it was a really wonderful discussion to have some exchanges and information. Some things reminded, you know, by a few of the industry expert here. So that's really nice. I wasn't expecting that, so it was really good. I'm pretty happy, even though not all people who registered showed up, but I'm still pretty happy we were able to help at least one.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the word limitation. So so bias is a little bit kind of narrowed term. Limitation is always there because we are not God. So we're always limited by our experience and a personal like educational background, whatever. So it's always good or beneficial to talk to somebody else in terms of your career or even life choices.
Absolutely good. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Okay. And anyone else also wanted to share quickly? One or two things. If not, okay. I think again, like, oh yeah, Norin, yes. Please.
No, the one word would be like excited and hopeful, like because
Nice.
especially like going into this transition of like graduating and leaving school to like the outer world is so scary.
Oh gosh, yes. I can relate.
Yeah, so it's like a whole yeah. So no, I'm really excited and thank you all so much for today's session. I like that
welcome.
was really helpful.
Amazing.
You're
Oh,
welcome.
super glad.
Best
you think
wishes.
that way. Yeah, you're definitely nervous, right? When you're gonna step into this sort of the real.
So are you going to graduate in next year? Next summer?
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, in May. Yeah.
You may. Mm-hmm.
Soon. All right. That's
Good
really
luck.
nice.
Good
This
luck.
is this is the best time actually
Yeah.
to
Thank
start
you so
planning.
much.
Good for you, Norin. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Awesome. So nice meeting everybody.
Yeah.
Thank
Super
you,
to see
Neri, for your
Larry, and
thoughts.
everyone
My pleasure.
here.
Happy to meet you, Nick, and having too much.
Yeah, Nick, good to see you again. Naran, good luck with your
Thank you so
continuing
much.
studies, and reach out to the group here when you feel the need.
Oh,
Right.
I will sure do. Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much.
okay. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.